Do you know what happens when you spend time outside every single day, no matter the weather or life events, and you do it in Alaska? That's what I'm working to find out. I'm Amy Bouchatz, and this is my weekly outdoor diary where I tell you what I've been seeing and learning through my own daily outdoor habit tackling the Humans Outside 365 challenge. Sometimes it's awesome. Sometimes it's hilarious and full of fails. But it's always my real life. Let's go. This is going to sound a little crazy. But when was the last time you hugged a tree? Recently, I have been feeling especially grateful for natural things around me, and it's made me want to hug them. I know, that's a little fruity. I'm sure this recent tree hugging desire is related to the clear cutting that was done behind my house, obliterating into tiny little wood chips these trees with which I had previously felt a connection. But the hugging itself actually started before that, and is born, I think, of my increasing appreciation for the natural wonder I see around me and fully notice thanks to my outside time. My first recent tree hug was last fall, after I returned from that terrible trip to the Grand Canyon in October. You can hear about that really quite dangerous hike in an episode from October that I'll leave in the show notes. When I got home, I was so happy to be in the familiar comfort of those woods behind my house that I stopped and hugged one of the trees we were passing. And yes, that tree is now gone as a part of that project, but that's not what we're talking about today. That hug felt wonderfully grounding. It felt safe. More recently, while flying through Seattle in February, I stopped for an overnight in a hotel rather than take a red-eye flight. Right across the street from my hotel was a lovely park and lake, and I was able to take a walk there before my morning flight. I felt in complete awe over the greenery and trees around me. Back here in Alaska, it was very much still the winter, and so seeing tall green anything made me feel inspired, very happy, and very grateful. Which is why, on my way out of the park, no joke, I walked up to one of the trees, gave it a big hug, and told it out loud that it was doing a very good job being tall and strong and green. Very good. It sounds silly. I know it sounds absolutely crazy. And I'll be honest, doing it felt silly too. But it also became powerful because it allowed me to say out loud what I really appreciated about that space as I connected, and I mean physically connected, with a part of it through hugging. This week was my regular visit to my sit spot, where I go once a month for 20 minutes just to see how things are going. You might remember that this is a habit I started this year, inspired by Alistair Humphreys and his monthly visit to a sit in a tree, which he talked about in a podcast episode with me, also linked in the show notes. For my year, I picked a local lake, and I go and I sit there on a bench and just see what's happening once a month on the same day at the same time or so. It's April as I'm recording this, so this was the fourth time I've gone to the spot this year. And how is it going? On this visit, it was, in fact, very snowy. Yes, in April, but I digress. As I sat there, the top thing I noticed was the trees. How they're standing and how they're changing now that spring is here. And yes, it was snowing and it's still spring. I understand that. It's complicated here. There was a crew doing some tree maintenance in the campground that's next to where I was sitting. I could hear them sawing and shouting timber right before some trees fell. The nearby cutting made me feel even more appreciative for the trees that were near me. So, before I left, I walked over to one huge cottonwood with its glorious deep trunk texture. I put my hand on it, I gave it a hug, and I said, "You are doing a good job of being big and strong and old. Don't stop and don't get cut down, please." Then, I turned to the tree next to it, a skinny birch sharing trunk space with the cottonwood. I touched its papery, crinkly bark. I hugged its trunk, and I said, "You are doing a good job of sharing and being lean and tall and gorgeous." As I walked to my car, I passed several trees that I used as hammock anchors last summer. I touched each of them, and I said, "I'll see you later. You're doing a good job of being here, and we'll hang out this summer." Touching those trees, as crazy as it sounds, and saying those words and speaking of gratitude out loud gave me a connection to that place and those living, breathing organisms that I did not have before I did that. Yes, it still sounds crazy. And while each of those spots where I've hugged trees are special in their own ways, My connection to them increases every time I use not just my senses to experience them, but also my emotions. And that's what we're really talking about here on Humans Outside, isn't it? The emotions of spending time in nature, the emotions of connecting with living, breathing things that are all around us, and the soul level value we find by spending time outside every single day. You can see the art of this podcast episode, a photo of me hugging the tree they cut down behind my house, in existence no more. And you can see photos of all of my outside time in nature, quirky, not quirky, fails, no fails, tree hugging sometimes, on Humans Outside on Facebook and Instagram. I want to see your photos too, so share them with hashtag HumansOutside365. And until next time, we'll see you out there.